Hi, I'm Tiffany Craig of Continuum Counseling Services in Columbia, Maryland, and this is another Mental Health Minute. We've been talking about relationships. This is a series called Relationships 101, which is a primer for good enough relationships. So we've covered several topics already. Today's topic is going to be patience and forgiveness. Patience is definitely required if we're going to work well through our conflicts. We need to be patient in several different areas. We need to be patient with the other person, with the other person's way of thinking, with their way of feeling, with the way they perceive the situation. We also need to exercise patience towards ourselves. We have to be patient with not being able to necessarily say things the way we want to say them right away, or with staying as calm as we want to stay. I will give you some tools for that in a future video. We have to be patient with kind of where we are in the process as well, and we have to be patient with the process. So working through a conflict well, especially using the tools that I'm going to give you in later videos, requires that you be very, very patient with the process. We feel charged about things. We really want to, sort of fight something out, or we don't want to fight it out, but we know we need a resolution on something. To do it well, we have to be very, very patient. It takes time to really hear the other person. Sometimes we need to repeat back what we've heard. We'll talk about that in a later video as well. That takes time. It slows the process down to a crawl. But if our goal is to do this conflict well, with that goal, as we talked about in earlier videos, that our goal is to actually understand each other better and not to just prove how angry we are or how frustrated we are or how right we are. If our goal is to understand the other person better and to move forward in a better way together, it's going to take a great deal of patience with the process and sometimes the timing as well. Something I say often in session, I encourage people and their families to say is, okay, we can do this well or we can do it now, but we can't do both. And that's often the case. Sometimes we have to be patient and come back to the table at another time. But just keep in mind that if you do delay doing the conflict, you do actually have to re-engage the conflict at a later time. Not to say, oh, well, we're going to do it later, and then not do it. When you have to put it off because you're not in a good headspace, or because you're not calm enough, or because there isn't time, or because you can't do it eyeball to eyeball, or you can't do it face to face, whatever the situation may be, it's incumbent on you to find another time when you are calm, get yourself in a better headspace, find the time together to be face to face, and then proceed with the conflict that you really do need to have. So that's the patience piece. The other piece is forgiveness. Now, I grew up hearing forgive and forget, and it took until I was more than 30 years old before somebody, actually was a marriage and family therapist I used to work with, Dr. Rob Burdett, who's absolutely brilliant, and he used to say, forgive and remember differently. Forgiving and remembering differently requires us to look at the other person through the lens of their humanity. I'm going to guess that you're a human being. I'm going to guess that the people you're having relationships with are also human beings, at least the ones that you're going to work through conflicts with like this. And so the reality is, as human beings, we mess up a lot. I know I do. Ask my family, they'd be happy to tell you how badly I mess up at times. So it's not a question of how we're going to mess up or if we're going to mess up. It's a question of when we're going to mess up. And when we do, can we then own up and do something different? So forgiving and remembering differently requires us to separate the person from the behavior. So the person is a precious human being, and we can love that person, but understand that they are a human being, and at times their behavior will not be okay. So we can forgive the person without saying that the behavior is okay. The behavior is not okay. When we separate those two things out, we can address the behavior constructively. And I will give you tools in future videos very specifically how you can work through those kinds of things together and come to that better relationship. But for our purposes today, forgiving and remembering differently keeps us from harboring resentment. I think it was Nelson Mandela said, harboring resentment is like drinking poison and waiting for the other person to die. It doesn't actually work that way. So really, whether we have the other person's cooperation or not, we can forgive them and not ignore their behavior and not call wrong behavior right. And we can come to a better place of settledness. Now, my hope, of course, in this series, using these skills with relationships, we can actually do that in the context of relationship and not separate from that person. So to do that in the relationship, we separate the person from the behavior, we love the person, we address the behavior. I will give you tools coming up in future videos on ways to address the behavior in a way that's constructive and leads to understanding and loving each other better. But that wraps it up for today with patience and forgiveness. Our next video will be on what I call grace. Grace, again, is working with the humanness that we find in our relationships and doing it well. So until then, good luck, stay tuned, and I'll talk with you again soon. This has been another Mental Health Minute. You know, let's face it, sometimes life is just hard. The good news is you don't have to go through it alone. We all hit different bumps and challenges along the way, and I'm here to help you. So go to my website, www.mypeace.co. That's www.mypeace.co, not com, C-O. I do mean that. And click on the Contact Tiffany button. Let's talk. You can send me an email, you can text me, you can call me, either way. But let's figure out how we can get you moving from surviving to thriving. As the great Maya Angelou once wrote, surviving is important, but thriving is elegant. So let's thrive. I'll talk to you soon.